You're listening to the Visionary Lifestyle Podcast, the show that's dedicated to raising consciousness and empowering you to activate your highest potential. I'm your host, Magda Freedom Rod. Our guest for this episode is Richard Wegman. Richard is the Chief Yoga Officer at Wellnest. He's a yoga practitioner of 30 years, and he's been teaching yoga for 20 years. He also has an extensive background running environmental NGOs, including Tree People and Global Green. Richard and I talk about yoga, the importance of breath, corporate yoga, the biggest contributor to climate change, the state of the Amazon rainforest, the power of community, and a whole lot more. Listen in to catch some nuggets of wisdom and inspiration. Welcome to the show, Richard Wegman.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm really looking forward to having a conversation with you, very experienced yogi. I understand you've been teaching yoga for 17 years now. Is that right?
20.
20?
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay. Even better. Wow. 20 years. And how long have you been practicing yourself personally?
For 30 years.
Wow. 30 years. Okay. You must like it.
Yeah, that's an understatement. It's also something, especially in the beginning, it was just something I felt like I didn't have a choice to do because I had a back problem. And
so you got into it originally to alleviate that, or?
yeah, to reduce the episodes and the length of the episodes, and I was happy with that. And eventually, it completely cured my back problem.
So the back problem was what?
L4, L5 disc bulge.
Oh.
A pretty typical thing, but it was really
Mm-hmm.
painful. I used to work for UPS when I was very young, 18, and I was doing that lifting and twisting, lifting boxes and stacking them in a truck.
Mm-hmm.
So bad for the back.
Right. So you got led to yoga, and how long did it take for you to see a benefit from the practice?
Almost immediately, I dove right into it. After the first session, I was like, oh, I feel better already. And so I started going 6 days a week in the evenings to my first teacher. And I stayed with that for like 10 years until he made me a teacher. And then I still had some back issues. They still had episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And then the worst episode happened about 12 or 14 years ago. And I got led to a really great yoga teacher and physical therapist, Sherry Browerman.
Mm-hmm.
And she healed me, taught me how to walk, taught me how to do certain yoga poses a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I still have a disc bulge, but it doesn't hurt anymore, and it doesn't give me any problem.
Wow. Yeah. One of the things I like to say often is that yoga is a self-healing tool. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And, half of our pain is in the brain, and some of it's in the body, some of it's real, and some of it's worsened by our anxiety, our fear, our trying to run away from it.
Right.
So if you can figure out how to relax into what's happening and not have the fear, you can pretty much conquer it.
Right. And learning how to breathe is such a big piece of that, don't you think?
Absolutely. Yeah. Every class that I teach, a good half of it is about the breath.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working with somebody right now that has had many back surgeries, and all of them unsuccessful. And as soon as we start breathing, his pain levels go from 8.5, which he says is like suicidal level of pain, down to 6, 5, even 4. And it's just totally with the breath. And then as soon as if he opens his eyes too quickly and just like gets back into the thinking mind, his pain shoots right back up. So he needs to learn how to quiet the mind.
Oh, absolutely. It's something that's just so rampant in our society that people don't breathe. Just in general, right? And yoga, that's what I consider is one of the biggest gifts that yoga gives us is teaching us how to connect with our breath and teaching us how to breathe.
Absolutely, especially if you're lucky enough to get a teacher that does that.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that's missing from a lot of yoga nowadays is the breath.
Yeah, the awareness. That's true. Yeah, I've been in classes before where a teacher hasn't mentioned the breath throughout the whole class, and I'm completely confused by that. How can you do yoga without talking about breathing? 'Cause that's so much of the practice.
Because that's how they're being taught,
Right,
and it's just we're losing it. We're losing the breath. So
right. It's so critical, and another thing that I say to my students sometimes, it's just one conscious breath can be yoga. Just taking that awareness and stopping and
yeah.
taking that one deep breath. I mean, qualifies as yoga in my book.
It's so powerful. I mean, watch somebody leave their work, go outside, and light up a cigarette, and the first thing they do is they take that.
Hmm.
Right? And even though it's full of toxic fumes,
Right,
it's
of course.
still relaxing to them.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's the power of the breath. It's still a big
Interesting.
deal.
People are thinking it's the cigarette relaxing them, but
It's
really it's the
not.
breathing. Note to all the smokers out there. Okay. Leave the cigarette behind and just do the breath work. Okay.
Exactly.
So you said that you stayed with your first teacher for 10 years?
Yeah, I think it was about that. Yeah. Yeah.
That's really remarkable because, I find that, sometimes people need to try out different teachers because there's definitely not a one size fits all approach to yoga, right? So that.
Well, yes, I learned that later, but I was approaching yoga from the like how you approach like learning Spanish. It's like you're going to
Mhm.
go, you're going to take some classes, and you're going to do it yourself,
Mhm.
right? So I went actually the first year. I didn't want to go to the teacher that was recommended to me by my girlfriend at the time,
Mhm.
and I went to another teacher, and I said, okay, I'm going to take 3 classes and see what if I like it. And every class was different, and I was like, well, how am I going to learn this if it's different all the time? And so then I went and did it again, and the
Uh-huh.
same thing happened. And then I found my teacher, and every class was exactly the same, only because he was trained in the Sivananda style of yoga, and
Mhm.
they do 32 postures, and they do them the same way all the time. And I was like, this I understand, I can do this.
Mhm.
So it was the same all the time, so I just stuck with him.
Yeah, that was the structure that worked for you.
Yeah, yeah,
Right, yeah. And it is so different for everyone. There's so many different styles of yoga and different energies of different teachers. I always want to encourage people to, try out different teachers until you find one that you really resonate with, that really inspires you, that really makes you want to practice more.
yeah. And also, go find teachers where you can learn new things from. I was at
Hmm.
this. We haven't talked about it yet, but at this job I have with Wellnest, I interview teachers to hire them, and this one teacher was brand new, and she um, was a vinyasa flow kind of hot yoga teacher, and that's what she was taught, and that's what she
Hmm.
knew. And I said, okay, you're going to walk into somebody's apartment, and it's a 55-year-old guy with a big belly, and he can barely touch his knees. Like, what are you going to do with him? You're going to put him through a vinyasa? And she looked like a deer in the headlights. She was like, I don't know. I said, you need to, I'm going to keep you on the list, but you need to go out there and start taking classes from different teachers. I
Mm.
said, go take Denise Kaufman's yin class, and take a restorative class, and take a beginner class, and just go around and take all these different classes. And you're already a teacher, so you'll pick up on it really quick. But
Right,
she needs to learn that there's different ways to do yoga.
right. Yeah. So many different angles we can come at yoga from.
Right.
So so your personal benefit that you're getting from yoga is the relief of your back pain, right? What else would you say? How does yoga benefit you personally?
Well, I used to be a pretty angry young man, and
Hmm.
now that I'm no longer a young man, but I found yoga, my anger is pretty much gone. Um, I'm pretty mellow now, and not much gets me angry. Very few things, very few times that I can recall in the past 10 or 15 years that I really like lost my cool. Um, and those were all good learning lessons, and they were mostly about my ego.
Sure.
So
Hmm.
it's I find a more balanced life through yoga. You know.
Mhm. Yeah,
Uh,
beautiful. Those are some great benefits. So that's on the personal level. On the macrocosm, how do you see yoga benefiting the world?
wow. To talk about that, I think I'd have to explain to the listener that I've been an environmentalist and social activist my whole life, trying
Hmm.
to create behavioral change in the masses.
Hmm.
And largely um, unsuccessful. Um, I say with pause.
Mm.
It's kind of a bummer to think about it that way. But I mean, there were some victories along the way, but it's hard to change people's behavior.
Hmm.
They're just not willing to give up those little plastic water bottles or their big SUV or all the different things that are doing damage to our mother, the earth.
Hmm.
So, like, well, how can it change? And what I've experienced as a yoga teacher is that a new student comes into class and puts their mat down crooked and lies on it crooked. And then I ask them to raise their right hand and they raise their left. And then they go, oh, yeah. So they're not connected to their body, they're not connected to their space.
Hmm.
And then they keep coming. And suddenly their mat is straight and so they've gotten awareness about that, and then they're laying on their mat straight, and they've gotten an awareness about that. You tell them to raise their right hand, they do that. So now they've got a body awareness, and yoga just keeps bringing more and more awareness. Or I use the word noticing a lot. Notice what's happening in your mind, your body, your emotions, and you practice that on the mat, and then you can carry that noticing tool out into the world and you start noticing like, wow, maybe this plastic bottle isn't such a good idea.
Mm.
And I can watch yogis change their behavior without even being told to. They just start getting it,
Right.
you
Hmm.
know? And it's not a pushing at them. It's just like you're nurturing them to learn more about themselves, and from inside out they start making the right choices. And so I've seen more behavioral change individually, one-on-one, happen on the mat than I have anywhere else.
Mm.
So
Yeah, how fantastic. Yeah. So
yeah,
yoga, the practice itself raises consciousness, raises awareness, self-awareness, and then
and then
expanding out into the world. I mean, it only makes sense from the inside out, as you say. Yeah.
exactly.
Hmm. It's beautiful. Yeah, that's I totally agree with that. That is a way that yoga can benefit the world. It's just it's a tool for awakening consciousness.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
So what's your favorite part of the practice? Is it the breath work? Is it the asana? Is it, the meditation that comes with it? What's personally for you the best part?
Yeah, I would have to say the breath, but I also would have to say that those last few poses, the forward bends where you know that the meditation is approaching you. One of my favorite teachers, Mark Whitwell, he says, don't try to meditate. He's like, do your yoga and the meditation will just come.
Hmm.
And it'll occur naturally and spontaneously. So sometimes I get part of the way through my practice and it's just suddenly I just want to be still and I just roll over to my zafu and sit and I'm just still. And maybe I've only done 15 minutes worth of yoga,
Hmm.
and that's my favorite part is that transition
Mm.
into the stillness.
Yeah, the stillness. When the stillness comes upon you. I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. So you mentioned earlier Wellnest. I want to talk about that. You have such a cool job title, Chief Yoga Officer for Wellnest. So please tell us, what is Wellnest about and what's the latest with Wellnest?
Wellness, think of it as Uber meets Etsy yoga. So from the student side, there's an app on your phone, and you push some buttons, and an hour or more later, or next week, a yoga teacher comes to your house, your business, the beach, your park, wherever you want. Um, Different levels of teachers, different types of classes. We're going to add meditation soon. And it's Etsy from the point of view of like, you also can have a choice. You can look at profiles of different teachers. Say you want a very experienced, like a master teacher, to come to your place and to do a particular style of yoga that we do and that we offer. So you can look at these teachers and pick one.
Mm.
So in that way, it's kind of like Etsy, because you're picking the teacher instead of the cabbies fighting for it and trying to get to you first or something. However,
Right. Yeah. So you can look through profiles and see, but from what you can glean from that, maybe choose a teacher that you're going to feel most resonance with.
right. And
That's
then the new thing we're just launching is corporate yoga. So corporations can bring yoga into the workplace, and we'll supply them with um, teachers.
that is so great. I love the corporate wellness programs, and especially if we talk about bringing yoga into it, because as we're already discussing that yoga is a tool for raising consciousness on the planet, and what better place to do that than in the corporations, right?
Absolutely, yeah. If we
Hmm.
can get that to the young people in the corporations, and then they climb the ladder, and we
Mm,
end up with a lot of CEOs that are yogis, like
right.
it'll be amazing to see what kind of choices they make as opposed to the ones that are making the choices now.
Right. That's really exciting to think about the ripple effects of a program like that.
Yeah, right. The trickle up.
Yeah, the trickle up. I love that. That's super exciting. Um, okay, so switching gears now. I know that you're also an environmentalist,
Hmm.
and you worked for many years with Global Green,
Hmm.
one of my favorite nonprofits. Um, how did that come about that you started caring so much about the planet?
Wow. Um, I grew up in New Jersey, and I grew up in the country in New Jersey, and most people think of New Jersey as this urban blight area that looks like Newark, New Jersey, or something like that. But Jersey's a very green state. It's called the Garden State, and I lived on a block that only had 8 houses on it, and it had 50 miles of woods, we call them, forest, in front of the house, and it had a swamp in the back. And I grew up playing in that. That it was just all open. There was no fences between the houses. Nobody locked their doors. I used to run into one of my neighbor's houses just to go to the bathroom or whatever. I'd say, "Hi, Mrs. Jones." Hi, Richie. And it
Yeah.
was just so I think that's where it started. And then I moved when I was 8. I moved to the city, to a really kind of crummy city, and Passaic, New Jersey. And the river used to catch on fire, and I was kind of blown away by it. And I was like, "Wow, that river is filthy." But I was still just a kid. So I think those two things kind of like were in my head.
Mhm.
And then this may sound really corny, but Crosby, Stills and Nash came out with their first album, and I was sitting on a bed with a friend of mine, and he was trying to pluck it out as we were playing the album, and I was reading the lyrics, and I was like, "My God, this is such a different way of thinking."
Mhm.
These lyrics. And
Mhm.
then I saw that they were doing a rally to protest the Vietnam War. And by then, I was probably 16 or 17, and I was really thinking about, shit, I'm going to be 18 soon. And I don't really want to go kill people. So I went to the rally, and I got there early, as I always do, to everything. And I started helping them because I was in theater already in high school, and I started helping them lay cable for the speakers and this and that, and they liked my work ethic, and so they invited me to the another rally, and then that turned into uh, 20, 30 years of doing benefit concerts and rallies and marches, and
Mhm.
um, and then that gave me an education about the war. And then it turned. Then the war was over, and then it turned towards nuclear power, which
Mhm.
back then was kind of a peace thing. Environmentalism didn't really take off until after like 1970, 72.
Mm-hmm.
First Earth Day was 1970. Um, and then that turned. I kind of started with social justice because then it turned into the Nicaraguan War and the El Salvador War and the protests around that.
Mm-hmm.
And then slowly it started morphing into more and more environmental areas.
Mm-hmm.
So my awareness and my education around it grew until I got my MBA, and um, I found myself with an old high school friend who had started a public relations firm, but it was an environmental public relations firm, and it's very small, and we basically invented the recycling for the city of Los Angeles.
Oh, that's
And
amazing.
yeah, and it was a lot of fun. We rolled that out over a period of 8 years, and
Wow.
yeah, it took a long time. And then through that,
But
I
what a
got to
huge win. I mean, what a huge accomplishment,
yes,
setting up
absolutely,
recycling for
yeah,
this massive city. Yeah, with so much waste here.
yeah,
And
and
that's
it was
huge.
one of the first recycling programs in the country because my employees at the time were. I remember these three girls marched into my office and they said, "We want to be trained on this recycling thing, and if you're going to give us this as part of the job to do this stuff." So I laughed at him. I said, "There aren't any. You're inventing it. Like
Right.
the details of it. Like, sorry,
I
somebody's
can't train you. You have to build it first.
yeah. Write a training manual and then we'll train you." So,
Wow,
um,
you're really there at the beginning of that. That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. So it was really great, and we did a lot of other great work around the Santa Monica Bay and
Hmm.
all fuel cars and what's called the California mandate,
Hmm.
trying to get cleaner cars in California. And then, life went on, and I changed from that to tree people. I just kind of fell into that job, and I became COO over at Tree People.
Hmm.
Um,
And
yeah,
their
I've been.
mission is what exactly?
Oh, I don't know their mission anymore. Basically, they're an urban tree planting group. They plant trees in schools, and city streets,
Hmm.
and in the mountains. And I guess their mission has a lot to do with community and neighborhood empowerment. You
Beautiful.
know, you don't really know your neighbors in LA, and
Right.
by planting trees together on your street, you get to know them,
Oh, wow. How
right?
beautiful is that?
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you get to take care of those trees because Tree People doesn't do anything for you except show up with the shovels, the trees, and the truck,
Right.
and then some dirt, and then you get to do all the work.
Mm.
Um, and then through that process, you know your neighbors, and so then when the earthquake hits, you're going to have somebody that can help.
Right.
You
Oh,
know,
that's beautiful. Building community and planting trees. Yeah, I
yeah.
didn't realize that they were specifically urban. That's beautiful. I love that concept. So you were
They
there
do
for mhm,
they do some mountain stuff. I was there for 6 years.
6 years. Okay.
Yeah.
I love the evolution of how you became an environmentalist, and I think it's probably similar path for me. Starting in activism, starting in kind of pro peace slash anti war
Hmm.
demonstrations, and then through osmosis, hanging out with these people who give a shit about what's going on.
Right.
You start to learn about the other causes that are also important that people are standing up for, with the environment being a huge one of those. Um, yeah, that's a beautiful journey. So
Yeah,
Tree
and
People.
I guess I'd like to add something that I'm
Mhm.
thinking about is because I saw a lot of people come and go doing this work.
Mhm.
And, you know, if you're a zealot and you really want to like fix a problem, save that tree or stop that war or save that river, whatever it is,
Mhm.
if your only objective is to do that and win, you're going to be disappointed most of the time.
Mhm.
So it's a very yogic thing, but it's about the dharma of it. It's about the journey,
Right.
and how you learn and how you practice non-attachment to your
Mm-hmm.
goals. You still have goals and you're still trying your best, but if you keep getting crushed every time you lose something, you're not going to be able to continue the work because you're going to be, depressed and on some sort of medicine. The
Right. Yeah.
psychiatrists are going
Just
to give
sit around crying, being devastated. That's not going to help
Yeah,
anybody.
right.
Yeah,
So,
I totally agree with you. The non-attachment is such a huge, I mean, we get an opportunity to practice this lesson all through our lives, I feel, but I can see what you're saying specifically with the activism. It's just, following the guidance, having your heart in the right place, working for the greater good, and doing everything in your power to make things better or to fix things. But yeah, again, at the end of the day,
right.
not being attached to the outcome and knowing that you're showing up and you're doing your best and you're being the change to the best of your ability
Yeah.
on the
Yeah,
daily.
there's so many people right now that are so devastated by the elections.
Hmm.
And they're so angry or depressed or,
Scared. There's a lot
scared.
of
Yeah.
fear right now.
And a lot of that is justified.
Hmm.
But at the same time, what we can do is try to understand. We can learn and try to understand the other side. And then volunteer for some organization that you feel connected to and help them fix things,
Exactly.
you
Exactly.
know.
Yeah,
So
I
they
could
need
sit.
help. They need support.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't have to go start your own nonprofit. There are plenty that need your support, that need your help and your hands and your
That are
money.
doing great work. Yeah.
Hmm.
And they just need bodies. They need hours. They need time. They need money.
Right. Yeah, they need people to be activated. And as I see it with the election, just taking a short segue into that, I mean, I really see it as an opportunity for us to create the world that we say that we want. And maybe it's a catalyst, all this fear and this upset, can instead be fuel for action. So we can't sit around crying and complaining. We need to get into the solution of it all, right? So the world's not the way that we want it to be. What can we do to make it better?
Right. And we have to understand it first to make it better.
Yeah, but does that mean we have to watch the news? I don't want to watch the
No,
news.
no, no. I think some of it is like talking to the people who voted for the people that are in power
Mm-hmm.
now, like, and ask them why, and like
Mm-hmm.
not accusingly ask them why, but like try to understand
Right.
why they did it,
Mm-hmm.
and in that understanding, I think is going to come some other knowledge and some higher consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
and then we can all shift.
Right. Some empathy,
You
some
know?
compassion.
Yeah. I'm
Right.
reading a book right now about Appalachia
Mm-hmm.
and the hillbilly culture, and wow, it's just amazing. They're in such different circumstances economically and education and everything, and yet
Mm-hmm.
they want a lot of the same things that we want, um, or the liberal progressives want, and at the same time, they don't feel like they've been treated right by the Democratic Party, so they're voting the
Right.
other way. And whether we believe they're right or wrong in that, it's still where they're coming from, and they're good people.
Mm-hmm.
They
Sure.
love their family fiercely. You know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
so
think part of it is going, and talking to people that maybe voted differently or have different viewpoints. Is where can we find the common ground, right?
right,
Where are we alike? Let's put our energy and our awareness on, where's the connection? Where can we be connected? What's the common ground? Rather than so much focus on how we're different. Let's
right,
find the common ground and expand from there.
absolutely.
Yeah. So going back to the environment, I would love to know through your eyes right now, working so many years in the field with the nonprofits and having so much awareness about this issue, what do you see as the biggest threat to the environment today?
Wow. um, biggest threat to the environment. It's got to be the way we eat.
Mm,
Um,
Amen.
It's the
food choices. Yeah.
yeah, the food choices, the animal products. It takes so much energy. It takes so much water. It takes so much topsoil to feed these animals, to feed us.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if we were eating just the plants, um, it would greatly reduce the amount of carbon emissions by, I don't know what the number is, but it's pretty big,
Right.
you know. And
Yeah,
then
somewhere between 18 to 51% by my research is, the emissions from animal agriculture. So even if it's on the low end, that's a pretty big impact that we can have every day. That the cool thing about food choices is that's for the majority of people, certainly not 100%, but for the majority of people, that's within our control, right? This is a place where we can actually have a really positive impact. That is a choice that we make every day that's in our control, especially, in the United States and even more so in California. There's no shortage of options, of plant-based options.
right. Yeah, and people are making, animal choices for every single meal.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I don't need to, you know, promote like total vegetarianism, but if you only ate like 3 or 4 meals a week, um, and made them really good, healthy meat choices, that would go a long ways to solving the environmental problem. All the rest of those meals are vegetarian. Be
Right.
amazing.
There's a lot of statistics out there about these things, about how much you can save, in terms of planetary resources by, choosing plants instead of animals
Mm-hmm.
for your food.
Mm-hmm.
One that sticks with me is the water, 500 gallons of water per meal that's just plant-based. So when I see people, yelling at their neighbor about leaving the sprinkler on, or, going out of their way to fix the, dripping leaky faucet, um, I
But
mean,
one meal is 500
in
gallons.
one meal is 500 gallons of water. It's like, better take a short shower for the environment. It's like, well, that's actually one hamburger is 6 months worth of showers, So how
Wow.
about we just
Wow.
eat plants instead?
John Robbins? Yeah,
Yes.
John Robbins
Hmm.
used to, one of his pamphlets said that it takes the amount of water to float a battleship to raise one head of cattle.
Yeah, that
That's
that
a
sounds
lot of
about right.
water. A lot of water.
Yeah, that's John Robbins, the author of Diet for a New America,
Right.
which I don't know what year that came out. It was 70 something. I just finally
Yeah.
read it a couple of years ago, and I was like, wow, this guy's my hero. He knew
Plus,
what was going on a
turned
long time ago.
he turned his back on a fortune. Family Baskin and Robbins.
Right. He's the heir to Baskin and Robbins ice cream, but he was watching family members die of heart attacks from, eating all that ice cream. And, he
All
chose
that
another
free ice
path.
cream.
He chose another path. He's a total warrior,
Yeah, yeah,
for the environment, specifically focused on food choices, which is,
right.
yeah, I'm very much in alignment with all of his teaching. So if people are not familiar with that book, that is a great place to start learning more about the impact of animal agriculture on the environment. And we'll put all this in the show notes so people can refer back to this. So, yeah, I would agree with you that our food choices are the biggest threat to the environment. And that's why I do a lot of the work that I do with teaching the conscious eating, is raising awareness about that point and then helping people learn how to make that transition. Because so many of us are conditioned, right? Um,
Hmm.
we're all proteinaholics and we've been conditioned that way, and we've got to have our protein. And there's a lot of education that needs to happen about how we can actually survive, and not only survive but thrive eating plants.
I remember another fact from his pamphlet that a razorback gorilla, the strongest animal on the planet, eats nothing but bananas.
Bananas.
That's all they eat. It's bananas.
Right. Well, there you go. The strongest animal on the planet surviving on bananas. So, yeah, we've really been socially conditioned to believe that we need to eat animal products, specifically animal protein, to be healthy. And it may have played a part in our evolution and making our brain bigger when we were hunter gatherers. But to that, I like to say that was then. This is now. We're evolved. We're smart. Our brains are big, and we're moving forward. We're inventing all this amazing technology. I mean, we're in a good place right now, but the population is exploding on planet Earth, and the Earth doesn't have the resources for us to continue eating that way, and we don't need to at this point
Right.
from a physical, nutritional perspective. Right.
And I would just add that the second most important thing that really nobody talks about is population.
Mm-hmm.
We're carrying a lot of people on this planet.
Right. Yeah. I
And
mean, from my research on the current trajectory, if we continue on that, we're going to be up to potentially 11 billion by 2050.
oh my God.
So almost doubling what we are now. Like, just imagine, right? How scant the resources already are. If we continue with our current eating habits, current consumption habits in all areas, I mean, there's only one planet. There's not enough resources here for everyone. So, the conscious eating, eating more plants is one way that, we can really
Accommodate that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's why I do what I do. um, so one of the things that I teach through conscious eating is about the devastation of the Amazon rainforest, and primarily, not, from my research, 91% of it is gone now, and about 90% of that from animal agriculture. So the slashing and burning of the forest to raise the cattle for, the 99-cent burger, essentially. I know you are or were on the board for Amazon Watch. What's your position there?
I'm the chairman of the board.
Chairman of the board. Okay. And so what can you tell us about the state of the Amazon today, and what people can do to protect it? And why is it important in
Well,
the first
first of
place?
all, I think the correct number, I think only 20% of the Amazon rainforest has been cut down. But we are losing something like a polo field a day. And particularly the headwaters of the Amazon in Ecuador um, is so diverse that it had 1 hectare has more species of trees in it than the entire country of America.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's the diversity of the place,
Right.
and
So that's.
it's the lungs of the planet.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting most of our oxygen from the Amazon. Like the whole planet is getting a tremendous amount of oxygen from that, and our water, especially California. We've just come through a drought of 2 years long, and they've newly discovered what they're calling cloud rivers, and these clouds form over the Amazon that have more water in it than the Amazon River.
Mm.
And they move north through Central America, through Mexico, and then they rainfall on California and the Sierras, and they go all the way up to Seattle.
Oh.
So what happens in the rainforests affects the Western Hemisphere greatly, along with the whole planet. So,
That's
and it's,
interesting to
yeah.
understand. Yeah. Okay.
And, Amazon Watch was originally started by Atosa Sultani to protect the people of the Amazon, because she used to work for Rainforest Action Network, which
Mm-hmm.
protects the Amazon. And then she said to Randy, the founder of Rainforest Action Network, Randy Hayes, like, what about the people? And he said, well, you should do that. So she did. She
Ah.
started Amazon Watch and started protecting the people. So Amazon Watch empowers through grants to indigenous tribes and
Mm.
helping them learn more about how to help themselves. The
Mm-hmm.
old teach them how to fish rather than give them fish. Um,
Right. Hmm.
so Amazon Watch is doing a lot of that around teaching these tribes to take care of themselves and to how to protest and how to stop people from taking over their lands.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're more on the human rights side than the environmentalism side,
It's a little bit of both. You know, they're kind of so connected.
right? They're interconnected, like it or not, right?
Yeah, yeah. So like, yeah, we're trying to. Brazil has a plan to put 60 dams on the tributaries to the Amazon, which will pretty much
60.
choke 60 dams. Yeah,
Ay, ay,
that'll
ay.
pretty much choke the Amazon River and kill a lot of the forest in the process of building the dams. And and then Ecuador is trying to financially survive, and they're leasing all of this land at the headwaters of the Amazon, and they're leasing it to the Chinese and all sorts of
Mm,
other companies.
mhm.
And basically, the oil that's under Ecuador is enough oil for the planet for 7 days.
For how long?
7 days,
Oh,
but it's going to destroy this section of the forest forever.
oh God.
So it's the trade-off is ridiculous. So we've got a campaign going called "Keep the Oil in the Ground," which a lot of other environmental groups have the same campaign. And we just found out that LA, with our power plant down in Manhattan Beach, all those tankers that come into LA are Ecuadorian crude.
Oh,
Almost 80% of their oil comes right to LA. So the people of California and Los Angeles in particular could have a big say in helping to stop that from
wow, that's fascinating. That's good information. Is there going to be a local campaign in Los
happening. We're
Angeles to
talking
address it?
about it. We just had a board meeting down here, and our executive director, Leila Salazar Lopez, went down there and kind of learned about it. And so at the board
Okay.
meeting, we were talking about starting a program around that. So I'm
Well, it'll be
sure they're
good to,
working on it.
yeah, it'll be good to get an update, when that comes in so we can get the word out about that. That sounds like a good place to put some energy. Um,
Mhm.
so I'll have to double check that stat that I had, that maybe I confused it with the 90% of what's gone has been, because of the animal agriculture. I'll have to double
That
check
could
on
that now that sounds like a correct statistic. That
it. Hmm.
90% of it's gone because of
Right. So one thing you
cattle.
can do if you care about the Amazon rainforest is choose the hemp burger instead of the hamburger. Easy
Right.
peasy. Right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's a simple choice and it was such a huge impact, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
that's the way I look at it. Another stat that I have about the Amazon that I go back to that I find really intriguing is that about only 1% of it has been studied in terms of the medicinal benefits. And as you're talking about the amazing amount of biodiversity that's packed into small areas of the Amazon, when I think about that, and just how fast, isn't it a football field a second is a stat I hear often as well, how much is being decimated.
Yeah, I don't know what the exact stat is, but it's a lot. It's like every second, every hour, every day. It's just
Yeah,
incredible.
it's an insane amount. So if the biggest driver of that destruction is in fact the
Beef.
cattle,
Yeah.
then stop eating cows. um, you
Right.
know and they're also, part of it is not just the cows but also the crops to feed them, so it's the GMO corn, the GMO
Right.
soy, that's putting more pesticides into the planet. I mean, it's just.
Yeah, and the whole rainforest is very shallow, so there's not a lot of topsoil.
Hmm.
If you went to like Northern California and started digging down underneath a 400-year-old oak tree, you'd find many feet of beautiful topsoil. But in the Amazon, it's just inches.
Hmm.
It's not that deep, and the trees don't go that deep, even though they're very tall. They're all,
Hmm.
you know, just very shallow, so that when you plant crops, um, the land doesn't last that long, so it gives out. So then they just cut more trees down and then plant crops there, and then they just keep going and leaving, just a desert behind.
Trail of destruction
Yeah,
behind them.
yeah,
Yeah, gotta get that 99-cent hamburger out there. Okay. Yeah. Oh, there's another way, people. There's another way. Uh, okay. So yeah, when I think about the biodiversity in the rainforest and the medicinal potential of all those plants, I mean, plant medicine, so much of it coming out of the Amazon. And when I think about, all those hectares and football fields, worth of, potential medicine for humanity, we're talking cures for every known disease and, and God knows what else. I mean, it's just so tragic that we're just, where it's like we're cutting off our nose to spite our face,
Right.
that
Imagine
sense.
if Ecuador and Peru like got together and started forming universities deep in the forest and working with the indigenous people to study the fungi and the plants and the trees and everything that's there
Mm,
and how it could benefit mankind, and then in a very responsible way started harvesting some of that
mm-hmm.
in a way that was regenerative for the whole forest. um, they could, the countries could make a lot of money with that kind of a model. Um,
Sure. I'll hold the vision for that one right along with you. That's a
yeah,
beautiful idea.
right.
Sure.
And it's not just my idea. I led a vision quest at Amazon Watch a few years back during one of our retreats, and I asked the staff. I said, "So, 30 years from now, you're like one of the last people today that's still working at Amazon Watch, and some guy comes up to you from the Washington Post and wants to know what Amazon Watch accomplished in the last 30 years, and like, what does it look like? What is it?"
Mm.
And so everybody kind of went off and meditated and then came back. And this was kind of the idea, It's like, wow, the forest is so diverse. What if there was some, like, reasonable ecotourism and universities to study the place? And so you could employ a lot of people and generate a lot of money harvesting, whatever you could out of
Right.
the rainforest without hurting it. So,
I think it's a beautiful, beautiful concept. I'll definitely hold the vision for that to
I mean, like,
manifest.
I'm not against cutting trees down to create lumber, but the way they do it, they clear cut because it's cheaper and they can make money. But, now the whole forest industry is kind of dead in Northern California because they've decimated everything. Whereas
Right.
I used to work with, when I was working back doing the recycling thing, we were working for the city of Los Angeles, and I used to go in there, and this one guy, I can't remember his name now, his family owned um, forests in Louisiana, and they've owned it for 200 years.
Mm.
And one year they cut down 5%, the next year they cut down 5%, and the third year they cut down 10%. And the forest is constantly replenished,
Mm-hmm.
and they
Yeah.
haven't devastated anything. And their family has lived, many people in their family have lived off of this forest for 200 years.
Right. Because it's done sustainably.
Right.
That's the key word here, right? Is
Yep. Yep.
sustainability, right?
And now, yes, and sustainability is an old word that didn't work for a long time because people didn't get it, and then we latched onto, as environmentalists, we latched onto climate change because people kind of got that.
Mm-hmm.
But now the new word is regenerative.
Right.
The millennials coming up are like, sustainability. That's just keeping everything the way it is. Let's make
Mm-hmm.
it better.
Mm-hmm.
Make it better than what it is. And that's regenerative. And I really like that. I'm excited about that.
Yeah. Beautiful. I am too. That's a great point. Thank you for mentioning that. Um, okay, just a couple more questions. I would love to know, as a yogi, as someone who's been practicing yoga for 30 years and teaching for 20 years, um, you know, yoga is more than a practice, right? It's a lifestyle. So, how do you start your day? What does your morning routine look like?
um, I wake up. I learned this from Eric Schiffman. And I just lie there and um, get into my breath. And then to me, my life is about service. And I'm pretty spiritual, so I talk to the goddess, and I basically say I would do what you would have me do, and then I wait a moment, and then I say, what would you have me do? And
Mm.
then I lie there with my breath and let something come to mind, and I usually follow that direction.
Mm.
And it could be just something little, could be like a big shift in the day, but you know,
Beautiful. Like a prayer for guidance,
yeah,
asking for guidance. Hmm.
yeah, for the day, yeah. And
Mm.
try
I
to
love that.
start every day like that. And
I love it.
I recently got a little mindfulness bell on my phone, which I love because it has this beautiful sound to it. It just goes ding.
And
And
what?
then
How does that work? Does it go off throughout the day, reminding you
yeah,
of the to
random
be present?
random moments, and then I'm working or I'm
That's a
intensely
perfect
doing
integration
something.
of
Yeah, and then
yoga
I
and
like,
technology.
yeah, right. Yes, and then I'm like, oh right, okay, breathe. It's just like, and now everybody at wellness, when they hear the bell, they all like take a deep breath,
Oh,
you
I
know,
love it.
and then we just like stop, and then even some of the other techies that are we work in a collective place, and so there's other companies all around us, and now some of the other people are starting to go, oh, breathe.
Oh, look at that. The ripple effect from you
Right.
putting that app on your phone. I love it. Is it an app?
Yeah, yeah.
You
It's
know the
like,
name of it? We should share it.
yeah, it's called, one second. It's
We can
called
put it in the show notes for everybody.
Mind Bell.
Mind Bell.
Mindbell. Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. We'll share that, and I love it because look, you're one person. You put it in, then it goes out to your immediate circle in the office, and then the collective around you, and just look at the ripple effect just from your intention for
Yeah, and
yourself. It's
yeah,
beautiful.
and then through, I surround myself with things that remind me to be mindful. So,
Mm.
I wear my mala beads. There's mala beads hanging on my mirror. My license plate says Yoga Head. That stops me from having road rage because I don't want to give yogis a bad rep, right?
Brilliant.
So, everywhere I can, every room in my house has something in it
Mm.
just to remind me.
Yeah,
And it's a
beautiful.
practice. It's a practice.
Right. It's a practice, and it's a lifestyle, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's not yoga's not just showing up to a class once a week. It's not an hour a week. It's a lifestyle, and that's something that I really want to enlighten people about with this show. So I'm glad that's coming up in our conversation. Thank you.
And I think I'd like to say that, Hatha yoga, correctly pronounced hatha,
Hmm.
is sun. Ha means sun, ta means moon. And the the ha is the sun energy is the strength. And the moon energy is the feminine and it's the receptivity. So hatha yoga is strength receiving,
Mm.
right? And so it's a balance. And everything in the yoga world, when you get into the religious icons, there's not just a male, there's a male and a female,
Right.
the sun and the moon. Every
Hmm.
single deity has a partner,
Mm.
whether they're married or not is another thing, but they all
Hmm.
have partners. And it's about the balance. So yoga is about living a balanced uh, life that's of service to humankind or the planet. Pick one.
Yeah. Or all of the above.
Yeah,
Why not?
right.
Why not? Let's
Why
go
not?
crazy. Humanity and the planet. That's what I'm for.
There
Great.
you
I love it.
go.
So, I understand you have a couple of new projects in the works. Yeah, I know you've got plenty going on as it is, but a couple new things happening. I'm hearing rumors about some amazing studio that's going to be opening, and then also a center that you're working on. Can you tell us a little bit about what's coming up for you?
Yeah, I'm writing business plans with different partners, and one is Saul David Ray, and my other partner Sarah Schultz, and we're forming a yoga studio here in Santa Monica with Saul and some really other great teachers, and that's about all I can say that about
Mm.
that right now, but it should be open in May.
Oh,
Um, so
great.
that's really great news, and I'm very excited about that.
Sure. Fantastic.
And then the land, it's think if you know what Esalen is in the Big Sur, it's a big retreat center that was kind of the beginnings of the New Age movement. I've always loved going there, and I love that place. And I always wondered why there wasn't one in LA, because LA has so many thought leaders living here and coming through here, visiting here, teaching here, but there's no real one place for them to come to and spend a week or 3 days at and give a retreat to people. And there are retreat centers in Malibu, some wonderful places, but they're $5,000 to $8,000 a week to attend.
Mm.
And so usually it's the elite that are flying in from all over the country to attend those places.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm doing is trying to create an Esalen South in the Santa Monica Mountains that's affordable for the regular person and also as a nonprofit. So 10% of all the students in every workshop are going to be disadvantaged youth, or whatever the politically correct way of saying that is, but people that can afford it, that we're going to give it to, and so that they can take advantage of the consciousness raising that's occurring on the land,
Oh, what a
in
beautiful model. Yeah.
whatever form it takes, and it'll have all the programs, it'll have yoga, it'll have dance, it'll have music, it'll have, philosophy, you know, uh, it'll have an urban farm on it. It'll be an eco village.
Oh, yeah. Gonna
Um,
grow some food, huh?
yeah, yeah, we're going to grow as much food as we can on the land.
Beautiful. What's the name of it?
It's called the Pacas Center, Pakas, and the land is originally from the Chumash Indians, and Pacas means oneness in Chumash,
Oh,
and
perfect.
and it used to be, well, it is right now. Alice Coltrane, which is John Coltrane's wife, she became a guru from another guru, Sai Baba, in India,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's been an ashram for 33 years. But
Oh,
the
wow.
family is selling it, and so we've got it.
Oh, so it's
In,
the energy there is already activated if they've been doing that there for
yeah,
30 years.
exactly.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful piece of land. It doesn't have an ocean view. It's far from the ocean, but it's 40 minutes from just about anywhere in LA.
Oh, wow.
Um, so you can get there quickly and be there for a day, be there for 3 days, but you don't have to take a day to drive to
Hmm.
Esalen and then a day to drive back.
Right. Wow. That's so exciting. Well, it'll be fun to watch that develop and unfold. That's super, super exciting.
It is, yeah.
Um, all right. Well, I have one more question for you, Richard, and it's kind of a big one. It usually takes people a minute to come up with an answer, um, and it's been a tagline for my visionary business ever since I started back in 2007, um, and I like it because it gets people thinking outside of themselves. Um, and the question is, what's your wish for the world?
Hmm. Well, the first word that came to my mind when you asked that question was community.
Mm.
Um, yeah, the center that we just talked about is my big heart dream.
Mm.
And I really feel that if we could start to live in community and understand each other by doing that, by eating together, um, we could go a long way in healing the planet,
Mm.
by just starting to understand each other. I
Right.
know I teach so many students private yoga, and I go into their homes, and I'm just amazed at the fact that so many people don't like people, and they
Oh,
don't think joy and love are even goals in this life. They're just in pain by themselves, suffering through life, like, how did they get here? And how did they get so isolated
Mm.
and alone and feeling like, you know,
Right. And then seeing community as the solution to that.
absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
that's in the struggle that we all have by having to pay uh, half of almost everybody's work is going to rent or mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
So you're working 40 hours a week, two people in a household, and half of that is going to pay usurious rents or mortgages. And so part of the idea around the land, the Paka Center, is to create community, to own the land, and it's a nonprofit. We won't even have to pay property tax.
Mm-hmm.
And so just think about how much people's lives can be enriched by not having the pressure to pay back venture capitalists, to pay a bank. That's part of the plan, is not to have any of that. We're only going to give 3 to 5% return on the money.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we can all work like 30 hours a week, and we'll have time for family. We'll have time for fun. We'll have time to make love. We'll have time to explore art and our soul and our spirituality.
Mm.
We can live life instead of just grinding through it.
Beautiful. What a beautiful vision. I'll hold that with you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for dreaming that up and for taking the action to bring it into reality. And thank you so much for spending this time here with me today. It's been, I think, a really valuable conversation, and it's great to get to know you a bit better. Thank you so much, Richard.
Well, thank you.
Today's episode is brought to you by the Conscious Eating 101 e-course. This is a 6-week online course aimed at empowering you to make food choices that are in alignment with your values. The program is based on ahimsa, also known as non-harm, and helps you make every bite that you take an expression of love, self-love, animal love, and planet love. The course offers 15 lessons and 20 nutritious and delicious recipes, and is offered over 6 weeks that you can do at your own pace. It includes lessons like plant-based nutrition, protein, dairy alternatives, the story on sugar, GMOs, label reading, and many more. If you're looking to increase your health and happiness, balance your weight, reduce your footprint on the planet, and align your food choices with your values, or are interested in being part of the solution to huge world problems like climate change, rainforest destruction, and world hunger, then this is the course for you. If this speaks to you, please check out consciouseating101.com today. Thanks so much for answering the call to be here today. If you found the show in any way empowering or inspiring, I would be so grateful if you would write a review in iTunes. This is really the best way to help support the show and to help us get noticed by others who are looking for the kind of content that we're sharing. You can also support the show with a small monthly donation on Patreon. Go there and check out our perks at patreon.com/visionary lifestyle. Namaste.